Look, a lot of women are afraid of men. It doesn't mean they hate men. They still go out and see them, don't they? They still get married to them, don't they? I'm not saying that it's like all women hate men, but a lot of women are afraid of men. That fear is not entirely down to a physical dynamic, though in large part that is a part of it. You know why that is? Because despite what the woke feminists might tell you, the SJWs, men are a lot stronger than women. With no athletic training, the average man can very easily physically overpower the average woman. And that plays into it by quite a bit. That's a really big part of it. There is a massive amount of dimorphism when it comes to physical strength, and that is a big part of it. But it's not just that. Some women are strong, some men are weak. A majority of this problem is that men have been socialized in dynamics that enable bad behavior from them. I have engaged in that, and so have you, because it's an influence that affects everyone and taints their behavior. In the same way that you don't have to be an active out KKK cross-burning racist to have like biases or inclinations that are racially informed. Here's a great example, okay? For a long time when I was growing up, I thought that dreadlocks were dirty. I didn't know anything about black hair. I didn't think they were dirty in some kind of like social contagion way. I thought they were literally just a less clean form of hair. Nobody ever talked to me about it. Nobody ever explained to me that they were or weren't dirty. It's an assumption that I made because I had access to some information. I'm white. My hair is like this, My family's white. I know what their hair is like. I had black friends, but the ones that I had short hair. So nobody told me. So I had a belief that a very common black hairstyle was kind of dirty. Was that active racism on my part? Was that hatred? No, it wasn't. Nobody taught me that. It was just a thing that I thought. But it was still a consequence of a social bias. The fact that I had been exposed to some information, but not others. The fact that, and this is a big part of it, over the course of my life, I had been given the impression that certain types of hair were more upstanding or professional than others. If you want to see evidence of that, you can point to there being school districts that to this day will not allow for dreadlocks, even though they allowed for similarly lengthed braids from white people. They don't allow for dreads because they consider it an unprofessional hairstyle. This is such a common issue. Not only is this the case in a lot of school districts today in America, there's a famous one in Texas, but this attitude is pretty pervasive, in many places around the world, even in places where white people aren't the dominant racial group. In Japan, for example, I know for a fact that the association of dreadlocks or black hair being dirty is something still held. The people who believe that aren't necessarily active out and about racists. But imagine for a moment if you were a black person who had dreadlocks. Let's say you're a black guy, you're you're pretty clean and professional looking, but you've got dreads. There's nothing wrong with that, but other people might think that something might be wrong with that. Could you understand from the perspective of that black man as they do job interviews, dozens of them, because that's how it is these days, right? As they talk to people, go around, can you perhaps sympathize with a defensiveness on their part? That when they're speaking to an interviewer who looks kind of like a stiff collar white guy, that they might be perceived as less professional for their hair and therefore have to overcompensate the way black people so often do, with a very, very, very sort of studious, professional demeanor, very careful about their body language, the way they signal, the way they move their hands, because they want to come across as super measured, very, very, very measured. Yeah, the same reason that Obama was by far the most professional appearing president of modern history, right? Compared to Bill Clinton, Joe Biden, Donald Trump, any of them, Obama was easily the most straight-laced and professional appearing in basically every way from voice to presentation. Why? Well, it doesn't take a master of sociology to understand that he was being held to a higher standard. The reason I'm talking about all of this, okay, I'm talking about implicit bias, basically. Now, imagine if, instead of talking about what if people think my dreadlocks are unprofessional, we're talking about a woman who has female friends who have been raped, who at 14 got hit on by a male teacher at their high school, whose mother told you extensively while growing up about the threat of sexual violence that men present and how you always need to go out with another friend and you have to make sure your drinks are covered or always being watched and you have to da-da-da your whole life. And every once in a while, you get subtle reinforcements of the fact that men can do this to you. You hear these stories all your life, but you haven't experienced anything negative. And then you freeze up because you're in the locker, the locker hallway, you know, in your high school or whatever. And some guy who has a crush on you puts his arm against the wall next to you, and you are reminded, like that, how much stronger he is than you. Or you hear guys making a callous comment about like the length of your skirt and how like they'd like to sleep with you or fuck you or something like that. And you think, wait, hold on a second. And then you get catcalled on the way home and you're thinking, hold on, I'm literally 14. I know multiple women who were catcalled 14 or younger. Not even remotely hypothetical, that one, you know, and then you hear rumors of like other female students in your grade being like promised or even given better grades on sexual favors, and then you like a friend of yours gets raped and you're like counseling her in the bathroom of her house. Like, can you understand? Please. I care that excess paranoia of men is how patriarchy reproduced itself as a system. No, I don't think that patriarchy is reproduced by men being overly aware of how afraid of them women are. Unless you sort of like actively admit you enjoy that, which I feel like at that point you're too far gone anyway. You weren't going, like no other argument would have sort of pulled you over. I genuinely, I feel like you guys, you know how I will like scroll through 50,000 Nazi arguments and I'll go like, that one's because he thinks about his girlfriend being fucked by a black guy. That one's because he thinks about his girlfriend getting fucked by a black guy. That guy doesn't have a girlfriend, but he does think that he can't get one because she's already fucking a black guy. That's what I'm doing with you guys right now. I just hope you know that. Like, this one's because he's insecure and already has trouble approaching women and doesn't want it to feel even worse. So he doesn't want to like, he wants to bury his head in the sand and how bad the issue is. This one wants to underplay the issue because he feels bad about it. This one's like a lot of it is like, I know a proxy argument when I see one, okay? I've been here before, okay? By the way, there's nothing wrong with feeling like insecurity sometimes about stuff. That's a very normal human experience, you know? You just have to like, you have to engage with those feelings responsibly rather than trying to legitimize them by making like a big argument to justify them or whatever. Yeah, don't like project it or try to rationalize them with this like, this is bad rhetoric because it's misandry and da-da-da. Like, that's what I mean. Yeah, don't like confront that feeling. That's the whole point, right? That's what we're trying to do this for. I don't think it makes you a bad person to feel that way, you know? It's not like it's not something that affects me. I will approach women and think, you know, like even on something as simple as dating apps, right? Are you not aware of the fact, men of the West, are you not aware of the fact that when you approach a woman, even on like a dating app or whatever, that a woman could approach you with like kind of an annoying or overbearing opener and you would find it endearing, but if you did that to her, she would be put off by it because you know she has more messages than you? This is just a fact, by the way. You would have to be like an extraordinarily physically attractive guy to receive more messages than the average woman does on any dating app. Except the dynamic is different with Grindr, but even with Grindr, I think it would probably be the same way, honestly. Like, does that not eat at you just a little bit? It does a little bit for me. I don't like the idea of like, oh, you can be bombastic, but I have to be like very controlled with an opener, like, because, you know, the dynamic is different. I understand the frustration. I can understand that making you feel like, you know, that kind of sucks. I don't like the assumption that would be made on the part of the woman that I'm messaging that me being maybe slightly overbearing, but like, you know, mildly, you know, a fear of being overbearing is something I have to be more concerned with than she would be, right? Like, I get that. I understand that, you know? But you have to engage with that responsibly. You have to engage with that feeling fairly and responsibly. You know, I'm not saying it's not unfair. It kind of is, yeah. But imagine then going online and being like, I think it's bullshit, the way women are not responding to me on dating apps, or they get like really snippy with me, blah, blah. And like, you understand that it's like, okay, well, it's because they get more messages than you do. Like, get over it. Like, that's just life, you know? Like, but people often make that the woman's problem. So that's the issue I'm talking about, I guess.